What's happening, YouTubes? I'm just getting my affairs in order for my work week. Starts tomorrow, Monday. And I'm just, I had a conversation. This is the time of year where, like, traditionally, families get together, it gets colder out, everyone wants to hunker down inside, I guess. What do they say? You go into a rutting season, You want to sit by a fire and appreciate the things that you have and be thankful that you made it this far, a little bit of prosperity. So yeah, I'm just reflecting like I do every day. But yeah, I just looking back when I was a kid. Um, I was like the last generation. Like we didn't have cell phones up until like I was like a teenager. I was outside all day. The bugs didn't bother me, the weather didn't bother me. You had landlines and payphones. If a friend called your house while you were out, you had a message. I know they had beepers, but yeah, I could have been gone all day. No food. Just like out, just roaming the streets, just in the woods. Doors were unlocked. Everybody kind of grew up around each other's families, and it was very wholesome, I guess. When you could like knock on doors, and that's what I used to do when I was younger. I would shovel snow, rake leaves. Where I lived, we had four seasons. Mow lawns, make money, and yeah, I'm just thinking about all the turmoil we're bringing upon ourselves, the tumultuous political I guess climate that we are all kind of just living under the umbrella of. And yeah, I don't know. There's got to be other people out there in the world that feel exactly how I feel. There's 8 billion people in the world, so there's got to be a percentage that understand where I'm coming from. But I've been doing yard work since I could pretty much stand. That's just something that you did. My first job was like pushing carts. And I understand like everybody's got to earn their stripes. They got to make their way, and I understand hardships build character, and there's nothing wrong with going through a little bit of a hectic season in your life to prosper. There's a book out there that tells you not to worry about these things, and everything will be taken care of, so long as you wake up every day and you put in the work. And I have to wake up every day and convince myself that what I'm doing is properly aligned with the things that allowed us to get this far in the first place. And I don't know. I just turned 38 last month, and it's getting a little bit more difficult. Even though I have made great progress, it trips me out. And I don't necessarily think in a linear way. I try and see myself from a top-down perspective, from a 30,000-foot view out. And I try to view things like yeah, I'm sitting here in this room making this video, but like my headspace is, I'm looking down on like the whole block. I'm looking down on the whole township. You know what I'm saying? The whole country. I've traveled the whole country, and I lived in places people vacation to, and I only saw 20 to 50 mile radius of where I lived because of work. All I did was work. All I did was wake up, commute. I mean, Al Capone knew that when he was doing his thing. I don't know, like the freaking 30s, 40s, 50s, or whatever. People with habits are not hard to trap. I think that was an Al Capone quote. It really stuck with me. It resonates with me. We're losing humanity. We're losing a level of dignity that, what I mean? Even though there's 8 billion people in the world, it's like I've driven across this country. There is so much empty space. It's just all owned by somebody who's not doing a damn thing with it. It's like if people were just a little bit more self-sustained or a little bit more less parasitic. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I'm just saying. Like we don't have to be living on top of each other the way that we are. It's really just a mechanism of greed and control for whatever reason. I don't quite understand it. Maybe it's not for me to understand, but you know, like I said, I'm reflecting. What I'm trying to understand is like, how do people just bring kids into this world? Like I understand like that's kind of like our duty. It's just it's biologically ingrained in us to want to be prosperous and generous and procreate. At least I think so. At least for me, I haven't really lost that level of humanity. It's just I responsibly, cannot bring myself to do that. Like 90% of my life is still dedicated to chasing the bag. And it's like I see, I don't understand what it is about people seeing somebody in a suit behind a podium that gets them so riled up. I really don't. Like why do we stop? Why do we keep turning on our TVs and like giving these people the time of day? It boggles my mind, and it's like, my I did a few hours of work today. my my when I was younger, I'd be just sitting, in my grandparents' living room, just listening to like salsa and merengue playing softly in the speakers. And my parents didn't do the best. We were middle class my whole life. You know what I mean? Like we had our heads on straight, and my grandma, I just smell my grandmother's cooking. She's cooking for like at least 10 people, and it takes her half a day to do that, and it was just one of the most pleasant, holiday memories that I have. And spare time, man, you just hop houses. It's like, friends down the street are having people over for dinner, and you just keep hopping houses, just keep going, oh, how you doing, Mr. G, or, whatever. And it was wholesome, But yeah, like I guess what I'm saying is, it gives you purpose. It helps you align your head, your mindset every morning when you wake up, that what you're doing is fulfilling. It gives you purpose. It's rewarding, and I don't know. That's getting harder. It's getting very hard for me as I get older. Learning the things. Like back then, ignorance is bliss. Back then I was just so naive to these things because, the people who came before me did a good enough job where like it wasn't just up in my face. I wasn't in constant fight or flight mechanism. It was they did the fighting for us. I don't know if you're like somebody who's subscribed to this channel, to my channel, or if you're just passing by, but I learned a lot from the people who've come before me, and I don't really have like answers. I don't. It's a very dynamic problem set that we're born into. But most of my family was military, so I think I kind of got a head start on some of that stuff. I was in the Boy Scouts, They teach you, I think their motto is like, on my honor, I'm always prepared to be mentally awake, physically fit, and morally straight, essentially, you know what I mean? To serve God and my country. And yeah, I just, I like I said, I just see people who've just never swung a hammer. They've never worked in 120-degree heat, digging ditches and laying pipe. They're just above reproach. They just sit in an air-conditioned room and just write laws. It's like whatever law was, but 10 years ago, it can change. It's like, I don't even understand how people take it seriously. It's just that stuff really doesn't have to change. Like, we don't necessarily need that to constantly be evolving. I mean, like we had it pretty good, and I think we're just like stepping on these rakes at this point. Because we're giving people who, just like I said, I don't even think they could run a mile, let alone five, in like 45 minutes. That's a hard thing to do for anybody. But like, why? And then it's like you're bringing people into this circumstance, and it scares me. It really does. You know, it's like I said, people are fighting their. I'm personally, you're fighting your biology. In the back of your head, you're always like, this is really not how it's supposed to be. At least that's the way I felt for a large portion of my life when I finally, what I mean? It's like how are you gonna call my generation entitled? When like, what I mean? It's like they always tell me like nobody owes you shit, nobody owes you a fucking thing, And I understand, like, that's a good way to look at things. But it's like every fucking paycheck that I make, there's somebody. So, I'll just take a little off. Like you want to talk about entitlement and privilege? Like you didn't even fucking work for that. I don't. I see that as being completely ass backwards. And not to say anything about like communism or dictatorial situations, but it's like when you really get down to just looking at it, evaluating it for what it is. It's like, it's not that America doesn't like dictators or communists. It's just they cannot have them if, essentially that's what we are supposed to be. It's like we already live under that, essentially. We just can't tolerate anybody else having that power. We have to be the ones that are dictatorial. We have to be the ones that are establishing the parameters of, I don't know. I don't know anything about that. My grandmother lived in Cuba for a short time when she was younger. I know Cuba's communism. She didn't like tell me any fucking horror stories. I'm sure like their quality of living, their quality of life isn't that great. But it all depends like who's in control. If the guy in control is a shithead, it's just gonna trickle down. It's gonna hurt everybody. If the guy in power, isn't willing to freaking lead by example, then you know what I mean. He's not capable of leading by example. It's like a lot of people that I meet in the workforce. There's really nothing different from a dictator than having a boss who just tells you what to do and just skims off the top. Like they're blown out. You know what I mean? Like they're my parents' age. And it's like they cannot physically do what they once were able to do. You know what I mean? And it's like they just fucking treat you like shit. I've had countless jobs, where people are just constantly walking around with their hand out demanding things of me. And then at the same time, anytime I ask for some type of leeway or some type of clarification, they tell me that I'm the one that I'm ignorant, I'm fucking selfish, entitled, I'm privileged, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, bro, you gotta, we need to solve that before, me personally, before I'm even having, I'm not, I'm not willing to just be that ignorant anymore and just like have kids. You know, like I want them, you know, but like reasonably, you know, responsibly, you know, like what we're supposed to be doing is, you know, like whatever, you know, people have wealth. You know, me personally, that you know, that's reserved for family. You know, like if the only reason I want to be overly successful is for my family, and like I'm not trying to just roll out a red carpet for them, you know, because like I said, leaders with good character, you know, make everyone prosper. The mark of like a first class society is being generous. You know, you know, some people, you know, you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. I get, but that's what I'm saying. You know, everybody needs to develop that character. Everybody needs to understand that there's like a neutral law of dignity. You know, like and about like the communism thing. It's like even communists know that people need a place to live. You know, they need a roof over their fucking heads. You know, like in my country, like if it keeps going the way that it is, they'll just fucking, you know, if you can't pay, they'll just get whatever the fuck they can out of you. You know, oh, 50 years. We can get 70 because of the medical, you know, we'll get 70 years out of it. And they'll just fucking kick your teeth and throw you in the street and then, you know, label you a fucking kook or something. You know, like that's not dignity. That's not the rapport. That's not the protocol of a prosperous and enlightened nation. You know, and I don't know. My parents obviously weren't thinking about stuff like that. You know, um, they gave into their biological knee jerk. You know, just like everybody else. You know, but like if I have kids, I don't like what do they say? They say, you know, I've heard that tossed around a lot. You know, it's if if they can't have me at my worst, then they shouldn't have me at my best. And you know, I'm the complete opposite side of the spectrum when it comes to that stuff. To that quote specifically, you know, I like if I'm just gonna be dead weight, I just don't show up for work. You know, like if I'm not gonna be of service, if I'm not willing to like go above and beyond, you know, the call of duty, to be a little bit more sacrificial, you know, like if I'm not capable of being of service, I just be like, yo, listen, today's just not a good day. I need to recoup, you know? And, you know, I would hope that people would understand with, I mean, it's like I don't have a dog or a cat, let alone, you know, children or a girlfriend. It's like, I'm not joking. I wake up every day of my life and my whole entire life is dedicated to, you know, working as efficiently and you know what I mean, as I can, so that I don't have to revert back to the person that I was, you know, you know, when I got here, I guess, you know. But yeah, I think, you know what I mean? I would never want to put somebody through this level of undue stress. I couldn't do it, you know what I mean? I don't think it's even selfish, you know? I understand that, you know, like things, we have to figure this out, you know? Like I would not feel comfortable having a kid unless I got like $100 to $500,000 in the bank right now. I mean, I hate to say it, I know it's probably doable, you know? Like I said, I'm not trying to roll out a red carpet for them. I'm just saying, it's like if things happen, like you need, or you know, the state's just gonna fucking take your kid. You know, you're gonna lose the person that you made your kids with. You know, I'm not saying everybody. That's the same for everybody, but you know, I don't understand how it's even possible for somebody to just ignorantly and blazingly just, you know, I don't have that level of faith. It's just like I have so much more work to do. uh but yeah, like you know, like I said, I just if I cannot give my best, if I cannot accommodate, you know, a pet or a woman or family in the proper way that they should be accommodated. I should not have them. You know, it's like if I have kids, I want to be able to look them in the eye and tell them like, yo, Papa did absolutely everything that he could because he prepared for you 10, 20 years before you even got here. You know, and I think that's what motivated this country. You know, I guess to my generation, you know, people were out there fucking building houses and fighting wars and you know what I mean? You have to wake up and you have to be in line. You know, you like now I have to convince myself that what I'm doing is right and just. It's very convoluted. And here's a perfect example of convolution. You know what I mean? Again, just analyzing it for what it is. You know, it's a $1 bill. Okay, and this is a 50. Okay. You want to, and this isn't just America. This is the whole world. You know, the reason our values are so fucked up is because these are both printed on the same paper. So it's like if you can convince 8 billion people that this one is more valuable than this one just because of what's printed on it, I mean, that's delusional. You know? And again, maybe I'm wrong. You know what I mean? So far, it's gotten us pretty far. You know, but like, that's what I'm talking about. It's convoluted. It's you know what I mean? It's like why is there always like an outdoor price and like a, you know what I mean? Like things should just be like upfront, transparent. You know, they should. You know, that's. It hurts me. It hurts me a lot. Just trying to wrap my head around these things, you know, because like by the time if something doesn't change, if I don't know what has to happen, you know, maybe good, even better things than I could possibly have even imagined for myself are on the way, you know. And this is just me building up character, but you know, I think everybody knows everything that we have can be taken away from us in a heartbeat. And it's like, before I know it, man, like this year went by so fast. You know, I had like a few little wins, you know, and the last month of this year, you know, like I'm gonna have a little bit more time off than I'm used to, you know, which is good, but it's just, you know, I'm not ready to just like hunker down and be in a rut, and you know, it's I refuse to accept responsibility for problems I didn't create. um, you know, and I'm just I'm trying to figure this stuff out, just like you know I think anybody else is. I'm very hard on myself. Um, but yeah, I don't know. You know, if you have family, you know that you're spending time with, like, you know what I mean. It's like if you guys are divided by political association or affiliation, if you're not happy with the gifts that you were able to to get or to give, it's just like, yo, just shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like I don't think anybody really puts it into full perspective that like that none of that shit is important at all. Stop giving it power over what you know what I mean, like what the true like miracle is. Like the true miracle is like, look, when you have patience and respect for other people, when you have, you know, like I said, just a level of neutral, you know, dignity, you know, it's like Like, here's another example, throughout history, I'm pretty sure there were people that were stoned to death in the streets because they said that the earth was not flat. You know what I mean? It's like I could have been. Somebody told the Wright brothers a long time ago, probably, okay, that shit ain't gonna fly. And that motherfucker said, hold my beer, yo. Hold my beer. Okay? So that's what I'm saying. Like, laws can change. This shit can fucking change if we just pull our heads out of our asses and stop giving power to things that don't need to have power. Like if I was born 100 years ago, okay, and I told somebody that there was rodents, blind rodents that flew around in the sky and they caught bugs with echolocation, somebody might have just fucking stabbed me and lit me on fire. If I tried to explain to somebody that something as small as a fucking caterpillar turned into a butterfly, somebody would have just fucking beat my head in with a rock because they don't have the wherewithal or the patience to just hear anything that is outside of their realm of what they deem to be important. We need to figure this shit out. I want to be successful. I want to be generous. Against irrelevant to what's going on in political society bullshit fucking, you know what I mean? Like, nah. No, actions speak louder than words. You can legitimately speak any language. If this resonated with you at all, let the people that you love know that you love them every single day. And God be with you.